Andrea?
Yes, ma'am.
Andrea will start. Yes, we will start. It's 11.
You can hear me, ma'am? The audio is clear?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to all. This is Andrea Babu from the Department of English. I would like to begin with a quote by Jim Rohn. Learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. Learning is the beginning of spirituality. Searching and learning is where the miracle process all begins. It gives me immense pleasure to extend to you all a warm welcome on behalf of Rajlakshmi Engineering College for the expert webinar series organized by the Department of Humanities and Sciences in association with the institution's Innovation Council. Today, we have amidst us Dr. S. Vijay Kumar. We look forward to a thought-provoking session on the topic, Designing an Impactful Research Outline. Before we start the webinar, I request all the participants to mute their mics and turn off their cameras. Questions may be posted in the chat box and will be answered during the question and answer session. I also request the participants to pin the speaker to their screens. Now, I request Dr. Thomas Alva Edison, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Rajlakshmi Engineering College, to welcome the esteemed speaker and the participants.
The greatest inspiration you can ever get is to know that you are an inspiration to others. Wake up and start living an inspiration life today. Very good morning, one and all present here on the occasion of the webinar series. Today, yet another webinar on designing an impactful research outline. I deem it a great pleasure in welcoming all of you on behalf of the Department of Humanities and Sciences, English, Rajlakshmi Engineering College, Chennai. Research is an important activity in any academic activity. Robust collection of quality information helps in developing a good design and clear research outline. A various type of problems and questions need to use research methodology depending upon the rationale of researchers. Here we have a research person to speak on the important topic in designing the research outline. It gives an immense pleasure and honor to welcome the chief guest, Dr. S. Vijay Kumar, Assistant Professor of English, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. On behalf of the management, principal, our head of the department, and on my own behalf, I heartily welcome you, sir. I am indeed delighted to offer a happy welcome to our respected principal, Dr. S. N. Murugesan, deans and heads various departments. My warm welcome to our most respected head of the department, Dr. M. Muthuswamy, for his august presence. Welcome, sir. It's also my pleasure to invite the faculty of Rajlakshmi Group of Institutions and other institutions, research scholars, and all the participants for this wonderful occasion. I welcome you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Hastings Fernandez, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to introduce our award speaker, Dr. S. Vijay Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology.
Thank you, ma'am. The mediocre teacher tells. The good teacher explains. The superior teacher demonstrates. The great teacher inspires. Said by William Arthur Ward. I'm extremely happy to introduce one such inspirational speaker, Dr. S. Vijay Kumar, Assistant Professor, Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. Today, sir is going to enlighten us with good insight on designing an impactful research outline. Dr. S. Vijay Kumar completed his undergraduation at University of Madras. He has double masters in English literature from University of Madras and MA Linguistics from Annamalai University. He also did his MPhil in Annamalai University and PhD in Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. His area of specialization is English language teaching. He has got 17 years of teaching experience. His accolades are: he was awarded Certificate of Excellence in Certified Peer Reviewer course by Elsevier. He received Springer Best Paper Presentation Award at the International Conference on Learning and Teaching. He was awarded Outstanding Reviewer Award 2019 for JALT Cal Scopus Index Journal. He is also certified peer reviewer in Publons Academy. He completed a collaborative book project on CALT with the Department of Digital Humanities, University of Iowa. To tell more about his research publications, he has 39 publications to his credit in international and peer-reviewed journals. To mention a few, he has 6 publications in Scopus Index journals, 3 international books, he has authored 2 books, and he has published 13 papers in international peer-reviewed journals. He has been called for many talks, and some among them are: he has chaired 4 sessions at international conferences. He has presented 6 invited talks. He has presented 29 papers in national and international conference. He is also the member of the editorial board for 2 Scopus Index journals. Today, we are privileged to have amongst us such an inspiring personality. On behalf of all the participants, I welcome you, sir, to this webinar. I now invite Dr. S. Vijay Kumar to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
For that introduction. And I just thank the other organizers also for formally introducing me. I hope my voice is clear. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Am I clear? Yeah.
Very clear, sir.
Yes, yes. So to begin my talk, we usually associate research to people who work in universities. But in today's context, research is not confined to people who exclusively work in universities. For any teacher for that matter, we always do some kind of research. The thing is, we don't properly document what we do in terms of innovative pedagogies, in terms of achieving learning outcomes, in terms of classroom delivery, in terms of student interaction. We do new things, but do we actually document them? So the problem with people working in a lot of colleges is we don't document and pay a lot of attention to research. So in that way, every one of us are researchers, but some of us publish and some of us don't. So the objective of this particular session is to help you all to publish in good quality journals. So by publications, I'd just like to tell you one more thing. Usually when we talk about impact research, let me define what is impact research first of all, because my talk today is on impact research. So let me define the topic very clearly and just move on and present my agenda to you. Okay. By impact research, what I mean is, for instance, if you take groundbreaking fields like STEM education, science, technology, engineering, management, medicine, and even if you look at some environmental sciences like climate change, people, they can make some groundbreaking research and record. But usually there is a kind of misconception among the research community that humanities cannot really come out with applied research. So I just want to debunk that myth. So it is possible for people from the humanities to come out with really impactful research. So my objective today is how can, as teaching practitioners, regardless of the university we work, regardless of the college we work, produce an impactful research. I'm sure that some of you may be research scholars, some of you may be professors, some of you may be pursuing your PhD, and some of you may be research practitioners. So regardless of who you are, we are very much inclined to write and publish. So I'm sure that this particular session I'm going to have with you will be of immense benefit to people regardless of their domain. So having set the context, let me now move on to my presentation. So my presentation is how to define and how to design impactful research in social sciences. Let's say EFL, English language teaching. Let's say humanities. So how to create an impactful design. So that is what my talk is about. My talk has 2 segments today. 1, how to design an impactful research, and 2, how to disseminate your ideas. Because doing is one thing and documenting it in writing is another. So how effectively you write, how effectively you document, what are the strategies to carry out effective research. So how can you get that kind of recognition? Because it all boils down to recognition that you get. People may do a lot of things, but unless if you want the universal fraternity to know who you are, you need to do some substantial research, and you need to publish your research so that people all over the world know what you are doing. And in that case, your job and your role as a teacher is fulfilled. So I believe that all of you will have a fulfilling experience if you not only do research, but know how to properly document it with alacrity. So I would just throw light on the nitty-gritties of an impactful research design in humanities. So let me go on to my presentation now. I hope my pacing and voice is clear. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
What is actually impactful research? My agenda 2 is to explain, not only explain, but also help you to disseminate. So we have two broad agendas. One is how to plan, what is the universal framework to plan, what are the best practices followed by researchers in Western countries and by researchers who frequently publish, and how do they disseminate. So I have these two broad agendas. So I'll be fulfilling these two objectives. A, impactful planning, and B, impactful dissemination. Let me move on to facilitating impactful research. So this is my outline of my talk today. I've told you what an impactful research is. Let me begin with helping you to identify impactful research areas. For a beginner researcher, or let's say you want to write a journal paper, or let's say you want to write a book, or let's say you want to do a collaborative project, regardless of any kind of research you do, your success lies in identifying impactful areas. So let me initially throw light on how to identify impactful research areas. I mean thrust areas in research, niche areas, areas that will really attract global publishers, because what they are looking for is innovation. So how to identify innovative areas and how to work on innovative areas is my first agenda. So about how to identify impactful thrust areas in research. And my second agenda is how there are two theories that you can apply in any given framework. One is called as theory of change, and the other is critical thinking framework. As people who indulge in pedagogical practice, as teaching fraternity, if you can apply the principles of theory of change and the critical thinking framework for our classroom research, we will be able to document with alacrity. We will be able to document our work, and not only document our work, we can get it published in a good impact factor journal. So I am going to throw light on or walk you through what theory of change is and what critical thinking framework is, and how to apply both in the context of your research. And next, one of the best practices followed in European countries is interdisciplinary approach. Now, as people from the humanities department, say for a faculty from the Department of English or from any department of humanities, what is the scope for interdisciplinary research? How can he indulge in interdisciplinary approach? Or how can he get his work published in interdisciplinary research? So I'm going to throw light on how to actually do interdisciplinary research, and then move on to discuss about the types of impact. Now, people may be of different interests. Let me give you an example. When I talk about types of impact, some of you may come out with a paper on pedagogical impact. Some of you may write a paper which has an impact at the policy level. Some of you may write a paper which has an impact on the learning outcomes. And some of you may have a paper which can have impact on society or the social impact. So I'm going to discuss about different types of impact and how to apply these impacts in your research. And penultimately, I'll discuss about a dissemination plan. And finally, let's say that you want to sit and write a paper. You should, before you send it to peer reviewers for assessing your paper, you need to self-assess. And how do the publication peer reviewers, how do the publishers, how do the editors assess your research? How do they find whether your research is an impact research? So I'm going to give you a framework in order to help you to understand whether you are actually writing an impact research. So I'll end my talk by giving you an assessment criteria for impact research. So what is the assessment criteria? So let me start with first agenda. Let's take one step at a time, because we can't really bite more than what we can chew. So we'll take one step at a time and focus on one issue. The first issue is how to identify impactful areas. Now today, researchers, just like that, choose their area for the research. And ultimately what happens is, if they don't make enough research on what kind of area is a thrust area, what is a niche area, which areas have a lot of scope for publication, if they don't do the groundwork and choose research areas, they will have a tough time in publishing their research. So now for practitioner research, you need not be a researcher, you will be a teaching practitioner. But let's say you want to document your new teaching practice. So you're coming out with a new online pedagogy. Everybody is doing some online teaching. So I'm sure that you have some grounding and you want to document what you do in class in the form of research, so that the global community knows what you are doing. So if you want to do that, first thing is step one, you have to identify impactful research areas. Let's say you want to do research on online teaching. There is a lot of research on online teaching, and probably without knowing what is already in research literature, if you just jump into research without much preliminary research on what has already been done, you will end up in reinventing the wheel. So my first agenda is how to identify impactful research areas. Take any given field for the matter. Let's say your area is on speaking, or let's say your area is on writing, or your area may be on blended learning, or your area may be on any kind of technology, or your area may be on pedagogy, or your area may be even from a different domain. Let's say somebody is working on dyslexia, somebody is working on ADHD, or your research could be even from the scientific domains. Regardless of the domains, the first thing you need to do is, if you start your research after identifying your topic, let's say I want to write a paper on technology. Technology is again very broad. Let's say I want to do a research on comparative study on online teaching and traditional teaching. I will explain everything through example. I'll take an example and explain so that I'll drive home the point. So let's say that my research area today, I'm going to build a paper or a research brick by brick. I don't have nothing. I'm going to start from the scratch. Let's say that all of you are going to start from the scratch. And what I am going to do, I'm not only going to lecture you, I'm going to take you on a mental process. So whatever I tell you, you just apply it in the context of your research. So all of you, the prerequisite for my talk today is, all of you think about a broad research area, any area, a topic, a specific topic I'm going to work on. So imagine, I hope you have imagined your topic. After imagining, you just come and sit for doing your research. The first step is, you will do a lot of literature review to find out what has already been done, because your objective is to do something that has not been done, right? So you first have to go through systematic reviews. If you Google, if I am going to do research on online education, I will type systematic reviews on online teaching. There will be lot of research where few people, 2 or 3 people would have synthesized, would have crystallized, would have encapsulated the essence of all research in a single paper. We call that paper as a systematic review. So identify systematic reviews in your field. And again, there is another type of paper called the meta-analytic reviews. Meta-analytic reviews will be usually a 30 or a 40-page document about a particular area of research. So read 1 or 2 meta-analytic reviews. And you can also read scooping reviews. If you just Google scooping reviews on online learning, scooping reviews is just a 10 to 12-page short review. So it's not only reading these papers, because you will not know what you read. If you search online instruction versus traditional instruction, you will get 1 million results. How do you zero in on the specific information? So usually systematic reviews or meta-analytic reviews are written by experts in the field. So you download 1 or 2 meta-analytic reviews, read that entirely. After you read that entirely, in the last part, the author would have given you niche areas of research. They would have spoken about scope for future research. And friends, that is where you have to pick interesting caveats for future research. So you can't jump into writing a research, a paper or a research project, but you have to first identify what the niche areas. Let's move on to the application phase. How do you apply your impact research? So I've just given in this flow chart the various segments on how you actually apply this theory of change. Take any topic. First thing is, what are the factors that led you to choose that particular topic? So you need to do a cause analysis. So what is the need for the problem? For instance, if you are doing an research on the impact of online teaching on learning outcomes, you should first of all analyze if there is really a need for that research. Because if it has already been done numerous times, there is no need for that. Probably if your context is different, your tool is different, your target audience is different, and if you have different learning outcomes, then definitely it's worth investigating. So first decide if there is real need for investigating that problem. So after, if you are convinced that there is a real need, then you can just go on to the next step. After identifying the specific need, you need to formulate a very good research problem and write a background about the existing situation. For instance, if it is online instruction, what is the existing situation? What are the existing methodologies? What are the existing tools used? So, or as I said before, is your tool going to be different? Is your context going to be different? Are you contributing anything differently? After making a comparison of what has been done earlier, or are you going to do something differently which has not been done? So that is a kind of an analysis of a problem background. You know, what is the current context? So set the context. So first, be convinced that there is a real need for the problem, and secondly, talk about the existing research on the area, and thirdly, you have to ensure that you have the proper resources required to address the need. If you are going to do something on an under-researched area, and provided you have lack of resources, then definitely you will have a tough time in convincing your audience, in convincing your readers. So you need to find ample research. Unless you come out with a different topic which has not been done before, an entirely novel area, you may not require this kind of build-up or this kind of background literature. But if you want the research community to believe what you are saying, definitely you need to have a lot of resources to build on. So ensure that there is sufficient research literature in the web. There is sufficient literature in top quality journals, so that the research community is quite convinced that you are really coming out with a very novel area of research. So after identifying the resources, then you have to move on to what are the activities that you are going to design. What are the tasks that you are going to give your learners? Because having a tool is one thing, and trying to apply the tool in the context of research in order to achieve the learning outcomes is another. So you need to design your kind of activities, and the outcomes, the implementation issues, what kind of impact it is going to have on the practitioners, or what kind of impact is it going to have on the organizations. So you need to talk about your implementation outcomes. So who is going to be benefited because of your research? Is it going to be the teachers, or is it going to be a contribution at the pedagogical level, as I said, or are you going to make a contribution in policies, or are you going to talk about a tool that is going to give your particular institution the kind of an edge, or are you going to develop an institutional framework? So you need to talk about the outcomes in terms of impact, and then the mechanisms of change. What kind of responses do you expect from participants, and how are you going to measure their responses? Are you going to take a feedback from them? So ultimately, you will measure your research outcomes. Have you achieved your objective? So you make this kind of a groundwork, this kind of mapping. And to do this kind of mapping, there is a theory, and that theory is called as theory of change. So I have gleaned this mind map and have just given you this source from a prestigious journal, Nature journal. So I have just given you the link below. You can just go and read further on how to apply the theory of change for creating an impact research. So what I have told you about the theory of research is just the tip of the iceberg. So it's up to you to just go and explore on how to apply this theory of change in the context of your the next strategy to create an impact research is an approach called as interdisciplinary approach. What do I mean by interdisciplinary approach? See, usually if you look at the best practices followed by researchers in European countries, people who have a high H index, just go and see the pattern in those journals. No single researcher will carry out a research. It will actually be a collaborative research from 2 or 3 persons, and sometimes more than that. Or the research could be from different institutions, not from the same institution. So that is called as strategic partnerships. You can find people who are actually working on your area from other universities, or people who are working outside your area. So that is called as interdisciplinary approach. For instance, if I am working, or if I am a linguist, or if I am a language teacher, let's say I am a language teacher, and I want to gel with the linguist, with the person who is from the cognitive linguistic background. So we both can come out with a very novel or interdisciplinary topic. Or let's say I want to develop a new pedagogy for online education. So I can gel with somebody from the IT team, where that person will help me in designing the LMS, in designing the multimedia tasks. So I can gel with even from people from the computer science background. So if you gel with people from different departments, and then in that case you can come out with very good impact research. Now whatever I am talking is in the context of educational technology. You can change the context and apply this interdisciplinary approach to any field. See, a person who is working on dyslexia and a cognitive linguist may gel together and come out with new pedagogy. So interdisciplinary approach refers to a combination of 2 or 3 different departments, and even theories can be interdisciplinary theories. Suppose a person who is working on education can choose a constructivist theory which has already been beaten to death. A lot of people have used this topic, have applied this topic, and again if you apply this topic in a different light, then the scope for publication is less. On the other hand, if you choose a topic from psychology and apply from education psychology and apply in the context of educational technology, then it is a kind of an interdisciplinary theory, and you can again gel with the psychologist and work together on how to apply the theory in the context of your study. So these kind of strategies are called as interdisciplinary approaches to impact research. Actually, impactful research problems cannot be solved with a single discipline. You need multidisciplinary approach in order to create impact research. So what I'm saying is, if you want to formulate important research questions, you should frame research questions that does not fit into one discrete pocket. For example, let me make this ideology very clear by giving you an example. Suppose I want to formulate a research question. What is the impact of online education on teaching outcomes? See, if you see this particular research question, it can be addressed only through one discipline. I'm talking about learning outcomes. I'm talking about online education. So in the context of my domain as an ELT practitioner, without any other discipline, I can carry out the research. If my research question is, what is the impact of the theory of change in educational technology? So if my research question is broad and I'm using a different psychological theory or a theory of change, I pick a researcher from that field and I'm working together with that particular person in trying to apply that theory. So that is what I mean by asking you to frame research questions that does not fit into one discrete pocket, that does not fit into one particular domain. So do not restrict your research questions to one discipline. If you, design your research questions to 2 or 3 disciplines, at least to 2 disciplines, and formulate your research question, then you have great chances of creating a great impact research topic. And in fact, even funding agencies look for interdisciplinary approaches. So this interdisciplinary approach is a very novel approach for coming out with impact research. And especially, research projects or even writing research papers for that matter. So what I am telling you is some of the best practices adapted by Westerners, by, countries which are leading in terms of publications. So we can very well adapt those approaches that are usually practiced by such successful researchers. So you can even gel. My practical tip is, don't write a paper individually. Gel with 2 or 3 papers, either from your domain, either from your department or from different departments. And if you do that, then you can publish 3 or 4 papers, in a year. For instance, if I'm working on one paper for an highly indexed journal, it may take 1 year for me to write the entire paper. On the other hand, if I'm working with 3 people on 3 topics, by the end of 1 year, I can come out with 3 publications. Maybe one as a first author, one as a second author, one as a third author. So, you have a lot of scope if you follow this interdisciplinary approach. Well, having spoken about the interdisciplinary approaches, now let us focus on the types of impact. Any research you do, regardless of the kind of research, let's say it's a dissertation or a research paper or research communication or a research project. So whatever it is, your research work will focus on any one of these impacts that we are going to talk about now. And you have to focus that your research has any of these impacts that I am referring to. And if you do that, then we can brand your research as an impactful research. The first kind is called the theoretical impact. See, let's say you are applying a theory which has already been applied by previous researchers. But if you come out with some new implications of the theory in the context of your study, then your study has theoretical impact. Or if you are choosing any interdisciplinary theory which has not been applied in your field, and if you are applying it and talking about its positive implications, then you are making an impactful research. So this is called as the impact at the theoretical level. So let's move on to impact at the practical level. What do I mean by practical impact? Practical impact refers to an impact that you make at the practice level. For instance, let's say you do a research on online education or on a new teaching strategy or a new methodology. And if that methodology is going to be useful for the teaching community in general, then it is going to be beneficial for them. So it has practical usage. So if your research study has some kind of impact, practical impact, then definitely we can brand your research as an impact research. And thirdly, your research could also have an impact at policy making level. Let's say you're coming out with a new innovative strategy, and that strategy is so effectively documented that an institution wants to adapt your policy. So in that case, we can say that it's a policy level impact. The policy level impact can be at an institutional level. It can even be at the national level. So these are some of the common kinds of impact. And the impact could also be economical. For instance, you are devising a new strategy or a new technological method of classroom delivery. And let's say it's so effective, economical, and which has low investment, a low budget, then you are making an economical impact. So which is actually when you discuss about cost cutting technologies, then definitely it is an economical research which has an economical impact. Then you can also focus on attitudinal impact, where you focus on learning outcomes. And another most important aspect on impact research is, if you design a research which has some kind of social outreach or a social impact, it definitely will have more visibility. So for instance, if you are catering to the underprivileged community by coming out with a new design of online delivery using low cost technologies, then it will have a great social outreach. Let us say now, elementary education is grappling with this COVID issues, and they don't know what kind of technology to embrace and how to reach out for the students. So for instance, if you come out with a simple solution to address this problem, then if it is successful, then your study will have social outreach. So generally speaking, these are some of the kinds of impact in the impact design. So again, what I said was just some caveats, but if you explore any one of the impact and focus comprehensively, you can definitely come out with impactful research. These are the types of impact, and you have to ensure that your research falls under the ambit of any one of these impacts that we are referring to. Well, in this part of the presentation, let's focus on the dissemination plan. We were discussing about the planning phase. Now we are actually moving to the execution phase. How are you going to really execute? See, TESOL, Test of English for the Speakers of Other Languages, they have come out with the dissemination plan. It's actually a prestigious body for language teachers. So every domain has their own prestigious bodies. So I am now discussing based on language teaching. So the context is teaching English for the speakers of other languages. So it's a group of journals. The TESOL body has come out with a framework for impact research. So they just come out with a list of classifications. So if you look at the TESOL website, you will see the unabridged version of this. So how to disseminate your research and create a kind of impact. If it has to be impactful research, first thing is you need to focus on research questions, or the research questions feasible. Not only feasible, is it going to make any kind of impact that we discussed earlier in the planning phase? Is the research question making a theoretical impact, or is it making a pedagogical impact, or is it making an impact at institutional level, or is my research question making an impact at the policy level, or is my research question creating a social impact? So you should have any one of those impacts when you formulate your research question. And the second recommendation that the TESOL makes is the connection of your research to the field. What kind of debates and what are the recent kind of research in your area, and how does your research area have connections with the previous research, and how does it fill the previous gaps which are not filled. And if you see in the TESOL research agenda, every year they come out with an agenda where they have identified the thrust areas. You need not identify. Their research body, TESOL, has every year publishes an agenda called research agenda. If you Google TESOL research agenda, you will come to know every year they would have come out with certain areas of research, which are actually called the niche areas. What are the potential areas? What are the areas which has been least explored? So they would have given the list. So if you had picked from the TESOL research agenda and focused from that list to do the research, then whatever you do will have real connection to the field, will have real impact to the field. So people who are working or who are researching in the context of language teaching can check out for TESOL research agenda. I'm sure that every domain will have its own research body, will have its own, at least one of the top quality journals in their field will come out with niche areas of research. So in the language teaching context, it is advisable to refer to TESOL research agenda. So having discussed about the research questions and the connection to the field, let's move on to research design. See, it is always possible to apply practical scientific designs for even studies from the humanities discipline. So is your design advanced? Is your design scientific? Is your design valid? So you need to ask yourself these questions before you choose a design. So rather than trying to master all the designs, choose any one design, look at the top quality journal or the research agenda or a previous grant. Based on your research, see what kind of theory, what kind of method they have applied. Try to gain mastery over that method and apply that method. That's a kind of a simple strategy to come out with a really solid research design. So according to the TESOL dissemination plan, you have to come out with very valid novel research questions which has implications. Secondly, how does your questions have connection to the field? Is your research based on the research agenda? And thirdly, have you used a scientific design? So these are some of the aspects of dissemination plan. If you look at the part 2 dissemination plan, you have to focus on the statement of significance. How will your research contribute to the knowledge base? There will be a lot of published research in your area, but the research that you are making, how is it going to make a contribution to the knowledge base? So how can it benefit the key stakeholders? So you have to focus on that. And again, there are different other aspects called informed consent, which is usually for quantitative research designs, the statement of ethics, and so on. But the fact is, you need to understand what a dissemination plan is. And to know what dissemination plan is, I suggest that you go and visit the TESOL research agenda. You will have a kind of framework there. To understand the framework better, you need to understand the assessment criteria. Let's say that your research is on ELT or educational technology. Now, the TESOL agency that I was referring to has an assessment rubric. They have an criteria to assess any kind of research. So what is the criteria that they use? Let us discuss. See, this is how the points are divided. 20 points for collaborative research. As I said, if one person completes a research paper or a project and communicates to a journal, the chances of being selected are very slim. 95% of the time your research may not see daylight. So you should always do collaborative research. It is because only 3 or 4 people, when they work together for a longer period of time and divide the work among themselves, it is practically possible to write a solid researchable paper. So if your research is collaborative by nature, then 20 points is given to that. And of course, there are other aspects on your design, whether you have used a scientific design, whether there is an alignment between your design and your topic. So 20 points for collaboration and your research design, and 20 points for feasibility. Is your topic feasible? Is it practical? Sometimes, it could be over ambitious, where many researchers are forced to cook up data. So naturally, the editor will know if the data is cooked up. So if you take up a feasible project in terms of time frame, then naturally the feasibility, based on the feasibility of project, they evaluate your work. And 20 points to relevance to themes. What do we call as relevance to themes? Again, have you picked themes from the TESOL research agenda? Because that's a kind of a research body which has actually come out with niche areas. And if you pick one of those areas and work on, it is very simple. At the same time, a lot of your time is saved because you need not find out niche areas. Niche areas has already been communicated by the agency. So you pick from the TESOL research agenda. And if you had done so, 20 points for that. And most importantly, 20 points for the quality of writing. Of course, every research paper has some benchmarks of writing called the clarity, your grammar, your organization. You should see with a microscopic eye, there should be no errors. It should be error-free. One of the reasons why Asian writers are not able to publish in high impact factor journals is because of the quality of writing. And this is one of the common comments by the editors saying the quality of writing is not up to the desired standard. When I say quality of writing, what kind of tenses to use in each section, whether to use the active or passive, how to avoid redundancy, how to cut unwanted fat, and how to write with alacrity. Of course, I run separate workshops on the language aspects of writing a research paper. If any one of the organizations are interested, maybe you can drop in a mail and I can do a separate workshop on the language aspects of research. So 20 points for clarity of writing and 10 points for the familiarity with current scholarship. So evidence, the remaining 10 points is for evidence. You might have spoken about so many things. You may say that your research is niche area, but what kind of evidence does your work show? So based on that evidence, 10 points are granted, 10 points are allotted, and the 5 points for the previous reputation of the applicant. Suppose you're applying for a scholarship, or you are writing and applying for a project or a research paper. They will look at your previous publications, and based on that, they give you 5 points. But most importantly, this is not applicable for journal. This is only applicable for projects, because when they want to sanction a project, they look at your previous reputation of the kind of projects that you have undertaken. So this 5 points is very much important for research projects, and 5 points to how effectively you have followed the structure called the IMARD structure: introduction, methods, analysis, results, and conclusion. So how have you followed that? To know more about the assessment criteria, again, I have just given you a truncated version here. Go and visit TESOL research agenda, look at the assessment criteria. Based on the assessment criteria, you work on your research paper and communicate to TESOL. If you are from the teaching background, there are more chances that your paper will be accepted. So, and one thing is for sure, your paper will definitely not have a disk rejection. Probably it will come back to you for revision, then you can revise it and you might send it back to the publisher. So this is one of the important aspects to have or to create an impact research. Having spoken about the dissemination plan in the context of TESOL research agenda and in the context of assessment rubrics, let me finally give you certain take-home messages in order to create an impactful research in social sciences. If you visit the website of Indian Council of Social Science Research, there you will see the approved projects there, approved grants. And if you look at the abstracts of those projects, you may, if interested, read the full projects. And from there you can definitely pick up interesting caveats for future research, because any kind of approved research project is a gold mine where you can dig in more information and wherein you can execute areas for further exploration based on the scope for the future study. So just go to the Indian Council of Social Sciences Research and look at the research projects, list of research projects there. I've just given you the link here in this slide for those research projects. And take-home message 2 is, as I said before, visit TESOL website and look for the grant winners of the previous years. For instance, if you look at 2019 grant winners or 2018 grant winners, look at who the grant winners are and take a look at the grants. What made those grants so impactful? Why did they receive the grant award? Why are they selected as the best grant winners award? So you just look at the patterns of those projects, and from there on you can build in your research. So TESOL grant recipients and grant winners is a wonderful way to still explore and dig in more information. And take-home message 3 is, if you look at the Research Funding Council for major and minor research projects, I have given you the link here. Just visit the major and minor research projects. Look at the abstracts of those projects. And from those projects, you see what is the scope for future research and use that as a kind of a launching pad and build your research. If you still want to know more about designing impactful research, I would suggest you to read this book on designing impactful research in advanced research methods for applied psychology. Actually, this book is available in the web. If you just type designing impactful research in advanced research methods for applied psychology, you definitely find the book. In case you don't, as I said, you can just drop in a mail. You can see my mail ID by the end of the slide. I can send you the book. So, but I'm sure that you will find this. So it's still, this book provides you, and the full spectrum of the research designs in order to create an impactful research. So if you still have further clarifications to know more about impact research, you can always drop in my mail. I have given my number here. And if you also want any future workshops in your or webinars in your organization, you can contact me. So finally, I'd just like to take any questions on this topic. The floor is open for questions. Thank you.
For the insightful and impactful presentation.
Okay.
Now the floor is open for discussion. A few participants have posted their questions.
Of course,
Sir,
I'll be glad to
shall
answer.
we go ahead and take some questions? Shall we go ahead, sir?
Yeah, of course, ma'am. I'm listening. Please go ahead with your questions. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So Lalita Pandey ma'am has asked, can we publish papers from our thesis? What format should we use, MLA or any other?
Of course, I'll be glad to answer that particular question. Actually, I believe, first of all, that is quite a specific question. See, the type of paper that you want to publish depends on the journal requirements. Some journals, for example, if you go for ELT journals, predominantly from European countries with high impact factor, from Web of Science and Scopus, they ask for APA format. And some journals ask for MLA format. And there are some journals which even ask for Harvard format. So the second part of your question regarding which format to choose depends on the type of journal you want to publish. So just go and Google it and choose your journal. After choosing your journal, go back to the home page of that particular journal and see their requirements. If their requirements is MLA, go for MLA version. If their requirements is APA, go for APA. Then the first part of the question that madam asked was, can I publish my thesis in the form of a research paper? Of course you can do that, but you have to rework on it. When I say rework, your thesis may already be in the government database. And if you send it to a research journal, it may show a high plagiarism index because it's already in the web. If you can entirely keep the context there, change the particular design or maybe have more samples, rework on the language part entirely. It is very much possible because there are a lot of journals that publishes research papers. But again, there is a format for that. So first part of the question, you can of course publish your thesis as a research paper, but you have to go and see the requirements of the journal. Question 2, regarding the format depends on the journal that you choose. Go to the journal homepage, see the format and choose your format. I hope I have answered that question. Still, if my answer is not clear, you can mail me. I can give you more specific answers. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
The next question is from Dr. Dwaraknathan. He has asked, writing an article and getting published in Western journals seem to be a great challenge. Yes. I would like to know what is the expectation of international reviewers?
Well, again, this is quite, targeted research question. I just really have an appropriate answer for this question. Actually, a lot of people have this claim that they say that books, especially the journals from Europe, are very much biased only towards, European publishers, and they don't publish Asian researchers' publications. Actually, I think this is one of the biggest myths that has to be debunked. Because I would give you a practical tip. If you go to British Journal of Education and Technology, the chief editor says, we actually want to publish a lot of papers from Asian countries, but we don't get the expected standards for writing. So that journal has published a policy document. The name of the document is Guidelines for Asian Researchers. That is an 8-page PDF document. Download the PDF document. It gives you a step-by-step analysis of how Asian writers can publish in, very good journals. There's also a second part to this answer. In fact, when you send your paper to an European journal, in your publication page, you are only uploading a paper online. You should remove the author details completely. So people, when they send your paper to another editor, they will not reveal the name of the country. They will not remove the name of the author. So people who evaluate your work will never know from which country it is coming and from whom it is coming. So publishers don't have any bias from which country it is coming. So anybody can publish, but the reason why we are not able to publish is we don't maintain that standards. So my practical tip, go to British Journal of Education and Technology, and if you can't find that, in the PPT there is a mail ID, just drop me a mail, I will send you the document. That's called as Guideline for Asian Researchers. I'll be glad to send. I hope I have answered that question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes. The next question is from Madam Anju Malar. How effective is a mixed method when it comes to research, and is it advisable?
Well, there was a lot of external noise, so I couldn't clearly catch the question. Can you repeat the question again?
Neha Mishra ma'am, kindly mute your audio. Neha Mishra ma'am, kindly mute your audio. Sorry, sir. I repeat the question.
Okay.
How effective is a mixed method when it comes to research, and is it advisable?
Of course, it is advisable. If you say mixed methods research, it is a combination of qualitative and quantitative approach. But one thing you need to understand is you need to look at the time constraint and feasibility. Because usually in a mixed methods approach, you use many designs. You will use one qualitative design, say it could be a questionnaire or survey. You will also use a quantitative approach like an intervention design. So you are using a combination of methods, mixed methods. So it is more time consuming than we think. But if you write a PhD project, a PhD work on a mixed methods approach, you may have ample time. Or say, let's say if you give yourself 1 or 1.5 years time, you can choose a mixed methods approach. So it depends on the time you have at your resource. But it is advisable. There are a lot of papers on mixed methods approach. But time is a constraint. I hope I have answered that question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Then one final question. Mr. Vadivel has asked, how to define which type of research would be suitable for our research? whether it is qualitative or quantitative or mixed.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful question. Wonderful question. I think, sir, first thing is you should undergo a kind of a methodology workshop. Can you please tell me, is it possible to go back to the speaker and ask what is his area so that I can give him a very targeted and specific answer?
Vadivel sir? Vadivel sir, can you come in?
All right, I'll give a generic answer if he doesn't come in.
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of method to choose? The method we choose depends on our research area. For example, I told you in the beginning, a comparative studies between traditional approach and online approach. This can only be a comparative design, or it can be a survey design, or it can be an intervention design, or let us say my research is on exploring the symbolism in the poems of Robert Frost. Again, the design depends on the field that I am going to choose. So, what design to choose? Whether it is going to be qualitative or quantitative. Practical tip. Let me come to a practical tip. Look at published research in your area. Go to the journals in your area. Search for your topics. Download some 1 or 2 papers. See what is the design which is applied by those researchers. Then come back, do the groundwork, apply those designs, learn more about the designs. So this is a practical tip. But I can't answer the question specifically because I don't know the research area that he is working on. Perhaps if I had known the area, my answer would have been more specific. At least if he wants to know more about the design, he can drop in a mail. I hope I have answered that question also.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, sir, for answering our questions patiently and giving us clarity on the difficult areas. Now, we have reached the end of the session. May I request Ms. B.S. Renuka to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. Good afternoon, one and all present here on the occasion of the 4th webinar of English webinar series, Designing an Impactful Research Outline. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of the Department of Humanities and Sciences, Rajlakshmi Engineering College, first and foremost, I express my sincere and hearty thanks to our eminent speaker of today's event, Dr. S. Vijay Kumar, Assistant Professor, Present Institute of Science and Technology. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, sir. Thanks for accepting our invitation and making this webinar a memorable one. We are thankful to our management, chairperson, vice chairman, and the principal for providing us a wonderful opportunity to conduct and be a part of expert webinar series. We are always grateful to our dynamic head of the department, Professor Dr. M. Muthuswamy, for his enthusiastic support, meticulous planning and implementation. I take this as a special occasion to express my sincere thanks to our HOD. I also extend my special thanks to all the participants, research scholars and students of other institutions for active participation in making this event a fruitful one. A special thanks to the organizing committee, teaching and non-teaching staff for their unflinching support and coordination. Once again, I thank you all for your contribution and participation. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you so much.